Forget the movie version of silent raids. In the Pacific, quiet work wasn't elegant. It was wet hands on steel. It was roots grabbing your boots. It was a sudden body at arm's length, when a rifle was too long and a pistol was too loud. Rear area rules said carry what you're issued, keep it uniform, keep it inspectable. The jungle didn't care. Men adapted anyway, sometimes with weapons they weren't supposed to have. These are the 7 banned blades Allied raiders used in the Pacific, 1942 to 1945. Number 7. Japanese guntō swords. Captured blades turned against their makers. Officially, U.S. units were supposed to fight with standardized, accountable weapons rifle, bayonet, issued knife. Captured enemy weapons were intelligence items. Souvenirs at best. In theory, they weren't something you built a raid plan around, and they definitely weren't something you carried on a roster. But raiders didn't always get, in theory. On small boat landings and close-in searches, a long blade that didn't need ammunition had a logic all its own. Captured Japanese guntō, often officer-patterned swords with sturdy grips and real cutting mass, showed up as practical tools, not trophies. If you were moving in tight vegetation or clearing a dark hut, it gave reach that a fighting knife didn't. At Makin Island in August 1942, Carlson's 2nd Marine Raider Battalion ended up in close quarters more than once. In that kind of scramble, a captured sword could be decisive. The trade-off was real. A guntō is noisy on web gear, awkward in a boat, and instantly visible to an inspection-minded officer. Some men got results. Others got the blade confiscated and got a lecture about discipline at exactly the moment they thought they'd earned trust. Number 6. Sharpened bar points. Modifications officers overlooked until they didn't. Issued knives were supposed to remain as manufactured. A factory edge could be maintained. A factory point could be inspected. If the army wanted a different profile, it changed contracts, not fieldwork. That was the clean, paperwork-friendly idea. In cold, cramped fighting like the Aleutians in 1943, some rangers treated that idea as a suggestion. Wet gloves kill fine control. Heavy coats snag your arm. A thicker, more rounded point that's safe for general work can feel slow when you need penetration through layers. So men re-profiled their bars. Files, stones, even a grinder if the company had access. The goal wasn't art. It was a narrower, sharper point that found a gap faster. In a close clinch, that can matter. A modified point can slip between web straps or into a seam where a stock blade skates. It also backfires. Over-thinning a tip makes it snap. A broken point turns a fighting knife into a pry bar, and a dangerous one. And when inspections did happen, the same sharpened point that saved you at night could earn you punishment in daylight. If you were carrying one, would you risk the discipline hit for a better first inch of steel? Number 5. Knuckle guard fighting knives. Banned tools favored by commandos for survival. Military forces liked weapons they could define. A knife was a knife. A bayonet was a bayonet. But add a knuckle guard and it becomes something else in the eyes of discipline, too much like a civilian brawler's weapon, too easy to hide, too hard to justify on a supply ledger. In jungle raiding, though, hands were fragile. Fingers broke on tree trunks, helmet rims, and rifle stocks. A guard made sense. Australian troops operating in the Southwest Pacific had to do quiet sentry work, but also had to hack vines, open crates, and lever gear in mud that swallowed tools. A guard kept your grip locked when sweat and rain turned everything slick. In raids and patrol clashes in New Guinea, close combat often began at touching distance. A guarded knife gave you a punch that didn't require a perfect blade angle, useful when bodies collide in brush. But the same feature that helped you keep your hand also escalated consequences. A guard encourages striking. That can shatter your own knuckles on bone or equipment. And if higher command decided it looked like an unauthorized fighting tool, it could disappear into an evidence bag right when you'd come to depend on it. Number 4. Cut down machetes. Standard tools turned tactical assets. A machete was issued as a tool. Clear brush. Cut tent poles. Make a path. It was supposed to be full length, because full length gives reach and leverage. That's what quartermasters expected to see on the books, and that's what a neat supply system can replace. Then the jungle taught a different lesson. In tight growth, a long blade catches vines, slaps branches, and telegraphs movement. It's also slow in a sudden clinch. So some Marines and soldiers shortened them, sawing off several inches, reshaping the tip, sometimes drilling new holes to repin a handle. The goal was quick handling, not lumber work. On Bougainville, with units of the 3rd Marine Division in late 1943, brush fighting and patrol work rewarded anything you could swing without snagging. A cut-down machete became a hybrid, part brush tool, part close-in weapon. It could pay off. A shorter blade moves faster and stays quieter. But it also costs you less reach, less chopping power. And if your shortened machete was logged as damaged government property, you might face charges or at least lose the tool because the system saw vandalism where you saw adaptation. Before we move on, if you had to patrol in jungle thickets with only one edge tool, do you pick reach or speed? Tell us which of these you'd actually trust. And if you want World War II history without the movie myths, subscribe because the top 3 get even messier. Number 3. Improvised trench clubs. A primitive answer to a modern problem. The official answer for close combat was clean on paper, rifle and bayonet, or an issued knife for utility. Clubs weren't part of the authorized kit, and anything weighted, spiked, or purpose-built to crush looked like a discipline issue, not a supply need. On raids, the problem wasn't bravery. It was sound. A shot carries. Even a scuffle carries if it turns into scraping steel and shouted warnings. So men built blunt tools that didn't flash and didn't click. Hardwood cut to forearm length. A lead sinker wrapped in tape. A section of pipe slid over a stick. Sometimes nails or screws, sometimes just mass. You could keep one tucked under pack straps and it looked like nothing until it was in your hand. Used right, it ended a fight fast and kept the patrol moving. Used wrong, it was a disaster. Clubs bounce. Helmets and skulls don't behave the way you imagine under stress. There are accounts of men needing multiple strikes, and of opponents still managing to shout or fire before going down. Quiet isn't guaranteed, it's just a bet. Number 2. Sap gloves and blackjacks. Concealment versus control, and the hand pays the bill. Formal regulations liked visible, inspectable weapons, bayonets, issued knives, pistols with serial numbers on a roster. Concealed impact weapons, sap gloves, blackjacks, slingshots sat in the category of policing or outright contraband. Hard to account for, easy to misuse, easy to deny after the fact. But raiders operated in spaces where a rifle was a liability. Climbing into a hut, crossing a canoe gunwale, putting hands on a sentry without broadcasting metal on metal. A sap glove, leather with lead shot or a plate sewn into the knuckles, kept your grip and kept your strike compact. A blackjack did something similar, a short handle, a weighted head, and no blade to snag. When it worked, it was brutally efficient. One hit, no muzzle flash, no blade to get stuck. When it failed ugly. Sweat changes grip, so does fear. Miss the head and you're in a wrestling match, and your quiet weapon is now just dead weight. Worse, those weights can break your own fingers if you land wrong on bone or equipment. Number 1. Privately purchased Bowie knives. Personal confidence that the supply system couldn't certify. Most armies wanted uniformity. Issued patterns meant predictable training, predictable scabbards, and predictable resupply. Privately purchased knives, especially oversized Bowies, were outside that logic. Too many makers, too many dimensions, too much chance an inspector sees a fighting knife where doctrine wants a tool. But men bought what they trusted. Some did it before they shipped out. Some traded for one in theater. A big blade made sense if you expected vines, crates, ration tins, and the possibility of a sudden clinch in tight brush. It gave reach over a standard utility knife and more weight behind a cut. And psychologically, it mattered. A weapon you chose can feel more yours than one you signed for. That confidence had a price. Big knives are heavy. They ride awkward. They catch on webbing in a crawl. In a boat, they clatter against fittings. And in actual close combat, a long blade can overcommit your arm and get trapped in gear or ribs. Still, plenty of men kept carrying them because the alternative was trusting paperwork in the dark. What these blades have in common isn't glamour. It's the gap between what an institution can regulate and what a human body can survive. Doctrine wants tidy categories: tool, weapon, contraband. Combat gives you mud, sweat, and a sudden problem at arm's length. So men edited their gear the way you'd edit a plan, by cutting away what didn't work. If you want World War II history without simplification or mythology, subscribe to Brass and Blitz. We'll keep following the choices people made, and the consequences that followed them.